Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the first distress signal came through. He nearly dropped his cup as the voice crackled over the ship's communication system. The woman on the other end sounded terrified. "This is Colony. Administrator Lisa Parker from Haven's Edge. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Unknown alien vessels have entered our system." Jake set down his coffee and rushed to the bridge of his transport ship, the New Horizon. His crew was already at their stations, faces pale with worry. They had been carrying supplies to the outer colonies for 3 years, and Haven's Edge was one of their regular stops. Jake knew the people there. Good folks who had left Earth to build a better life on a farming world. "Get me a connection to Haven's Edge right now," Jake ordered his communications officer, Tony Chen. "I'm trying, Captain, but the signal is weak and breaking up," Tony replied, adjusting dials on his console. Lisa Parker's voice came through again, filled with static. "The ships are huge, bigger than anything we've ever seen. They're not responding to our calls. Oh God, they're firing on the civilian areas. The downtown district is gone. Just gone." Jake felt his stomach twist. Haven's Edge had over 2 million people, families, children, elderly folks who had moved there for the peaceful life. "Lisa, this is Captain Morrison on the New Horizon. We're 3 days out from your position. Can you evacuate?" "Jake? Thank God, we're trying, but these they're everywhere. They're not just attacking military targets. They're hitting schools, hospitals, homes. This isn't a battle, it's slaughter." The bridge fell silent except for the crackling of the radio. Jake's crew knew what this meant. They had heard stories of alien contact before, but nothing like this. First contact was supposed to be peaceful, diplomatic. This was genocide. "The evacuation ships are being shot down as they launch," Lisa continued, her voice breaking. "They're not letting anyone escape. Captain Morrison, you need to warn Earth. These aliens, they're not here to talk. They want us dead. All of us." Jake grabbed the microphone. "Lisa, hold on, we're coming to help." "No," she screamed. "Don't come here. It's too late for us. Get word to Earth. Tell them what's happening. Tell them we tried to fight, but we never had a chance. These things, they're like nothing we imagined. Their weapons turn everything to glass. The whole northern continent is burning." The signal started to fade. Tony worked frantically to keep the connection alive. "Lisa, are you there? Lisa?" Her voice came back one last time, barely a whisper. "Tell our families we love them. Tell Earth that Haven's Edge fought until the end. We're proud to be human. We're proud to be..." The signal died. Nothing but empty static filled the bridge. Jake stared at the radio for a long moment. His hands were shaking. Around him, his crew sat in stunned silence. Maria Santos, his navigator, was crying quietly. Pete Johnson, the ship's engineer, was clenching his fists so hard his knuckles were white. "Turn us around," Jake said quietly. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed." "Captain," Maria said through her tears, "shouldn't we try to help? Maybe some people survived." Jake shook his head. Lisa was right. If we go there now, we'll just die too. And then no one will know what happened. Earth needs to be warned." The New Horizon changed course, her engines pushing as hard as they could toward home. Jake sent an emergency message ahead of them, but Earth was still 6 days away at their top speed. 6 days to think about what they had heard. 6 days to imagine the horror that had befallen Haven's Edge. When they finally reached Earth orbit, military ships were already waiting for them. Admiral Ben Collins himself came aboard the New Horizon to hear Jake's report in person. Collins was a stern man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He listened without interruption as Jake played the recorded conversation with Lisa Parker. "How many people lived on Haven's Edge?" Collins asked when the recording ended. 2.3 million, Jake replied. Mostly farmers and their families. They had some defensive satellites, but nothing that could stop what Lisa described. Collins nodded grimly. "We've been monitoring long-range sensors. The Haven's Edge system is dead. No radio signals, no heat signatures from cities. Nothing. Whatever hit them was thorough." Jake felt sick. Over 2 million people gone. People he knew. People who had trusted him to bring them supplies and news from home. "Admiral, Lisa said these aliens weren't interested in negotiation. They were killing everyone, even children. So I heard. Collins stood up and looked out the viewport at Earth below. Blue and green and beautiful, full of life. Captain Morrison, what you've brought us changes everything. Humanity isn't alone in the universe anymore, and apparently we're not welcome. Within hours, the news spread across Earth and all the human colonies. The aliens had sent their own message after destroying Haven's Edge. It was simple and terrifying. Lesser species will kneel or perish. President Alan Foster called an emergency meeting of the Human Defense Council. Jake was asked to testify before the assembled leaders of humanity. He told Lisa Parker's story again, playing her final words for presidents and generals and admirals. When he finished, the room was silent for a long time. Finally, President Foster spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, one human colony has fallen. Over 2 million of our people have been murdered by aliens who see us as nothing more than insects to be stepped on. His voice was calm, but Jake could see the fury in his eyes. They have made a mistake. They think we are weak because we are peaceful. They think we will kneel because we haven't shown them our teeth. Foster stood up, and his next words would be remembered throughout human history. Authorization is granted for Operation Darkening Sky. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource we have will be turned to one purpose. These aliens wanted to show us what happens when a colony falls. Now we'll show them what happens when you kill our children. Jake watched as humanity's leaders filed out of the room, their faces set with determination. He thought about Lisa Parker and all the people of Haven's Edge. They had died believing their sacrifice would save others. Now, Jake knew they were right. Humanity was going to war, and the aliens had no idea what they had awakened. 6 months after Haven's Edge became a dead world, humanity was transforming. Chief Engineer Ryan Burke stood on the observation deck of Luna Shipyard, watching something that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. The space around Earth's moon was filled with construction. Hundreds of ships were being built at the same time, their metal frames gleaming under the harsh light of welding torches. Ryan had been building civilian ships for 20 years. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining vessels. Now he was building instruments of war. The ship taking shape in front of him was the size of a city block, covered in armor plating and weapon mounts. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. How many are we up to now? Asked Amy Foster, walking up beside him. She was a lieutenant commander in the Space Navy, but these days everyone worked together. Military and civilian, all focused on the same goal. This yard alone, we'll hit 500 completed ships by next week, Ryan replied. And that's just Luna. Mars shipyards are putting out 300 a month. The asteroid belt facilities are converting mining equipment into weapons platforms faster than we can count them. Amy nodded, making notes on her tablet. She was in charge of making sure all these new ships could actually fight the aliens. It wasn't enough to just build more ships. They had to be better than what the aliens had. Any word from the tech teams? Ryan asked. Amy's face lit up. Actually, yes, Dr. Peter Stone's people had a breakthrough yesterday. Come on, I'll show you. They took a shuttle to the research station orbiting Earth. Dr. Stone met them at the airlock, still wearing his lab coat. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, but he was grinning. Ryan, Amy, perfect timing, you have to see this. He led them through corridors filled with scientists and engineers working around the clock. Remember the wreckage we recovered from Haven's Edge? The pieces of alien ships that crashed when our defense satellites got lucky shots? Of course, Amy said. That's all we have to work with. Not anymore. Dr. Stone opened a door to reveal a testing chamber. Inside, a human ship the size of a fighter was floating, but around it was a shimmering energy field just like the ones the aliens had used. You cracked their shield technology? Ryan asked in amazement. Better than that. We improved it. Dr. Stone typed commands into a control panel. Watch this. A targeting laser hit the ship, the kind that would normally punch right through human armor. Instead, the energy field absorbed the blast completely. The ship didn't even shake. The alien shields could stop energy weapons, but projectiles could get through if they hit hard enough, Dr. Stone explained. Our version stops everything. Energy, projectiles, even radiation, and it uses 30% less power than the alien design. Amy was already calculating in her head. How long to install these on the fleet? The new ships coming off the production lines can be built with them from the start. The older ships can be retrofitted in about a week each. We have the manufacturing capacity now. Ryan shook his head in wonder. What about their engines? Their weapons? Oh, we've been busy. Dr. Stone led them to another room where alien and human technology sat side by side on work tables. Their faster-than-light drives are actually pretty crude. They work, but they're slow and use a lot of energy. We've combined their principles with our fusion technology. Our ships can now travel twice as fast as theirs and go 3 times as far without refueling. And weapons? Amy asked. Dr. Stone's grin got wider. Their energy cannons are powerful, but they overheat quickly and take time to recharge. We've solved both problems. Plus, we kept our missile systems. Turns out the aliens never developed guided projectiles. They're going to be very surprised when they meet torpedoes that can think. As they toured the research facility, Ryan began to understand the scope of what humanity was doing. It wasn't just about building more ships. Every aspect of human technology was being pushed forward. Factories that once made cars were now making armor plating. Food processing plants were producing military rations. Even entertainment companies were designing new communication systems for the fleet. The president wants to see you, Amy told Ryan as they prepared to leave. Both of us, actually. An hour later, they were in the Oval Office. President Foster looked older than he had 6 months ago, but his eyes burned with determination. Admiral Collins was there too, along with Fleet Admiral Susan Reed, the woman chosen to command humanity's response. Gentlemen, Commander Foster, the president said, I want a status report. How close are we to being ready? Admiral Reed spoke first. We currently have 200,000 combat-ready vessels. Another 100,000 will be completed within the month. Production is actually accelerating as more facilities come online. Quality? The president asked. Ryan cleared his throat. Sir, our new ships are superior to alien technology in every way we can measure. Faster, better armed, better defended. If we had possessed these ships 6 months ago, Haven's Edge would still be alive. Good, because we just intercepted alien communications. The president activated a hologram display. They're planning to attack more human colonies. 3 worlds are marked for what they call cleansing operations within the next 4 months. The room fell silent. Amy felt her anger building again. It wasn't enough that they had destroyed Haven's Edge. The aliens wanted to kill more humans. How many ships do they have? Admiral Collins asked. Intelligence suggests around 50,000 vessels in their main fleet, Admiral Reed replied. They seem to believe that's more than enough to finish what they started. President Foster stood up and walked to the window overlooking the construction sites that now covered half of Washington, D.C. Fleet Admiral Reed, what's your recommendation? We'd, launch the first wave immediately. 300,000 ships under my direct command. We hit their forward bases and supply lines while the main fleet continues building. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll have overwhelming superiority. Do it, the president said simply. But I want one thing made clear to every captain, every crew member, every human in that fleet. This isn't just about protecting our colonies anymore. The aliens made it clear they see us as lesser beings who should kneel or die. They're about to learn that humans don't kneel. We finish fights. As they prepared to leave, Ryan felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. Humanity was becoming something new, something harder. The peaceful civilization that had colonized Haven's Edge was gone, replaced by something that could build 700,000 warships in less than a year. Admiral Reed, he said as they walked out, when this is over, what happens to all these ships, all these weapons? She paused and looked back at Earth where the lights of 1,000 factories burned through the night. I hope we never have to find out, Engineer Burke. But if another species decides to test us, they'll discover that humanity remembers. We remember Haven's Edge, and we remember that peace is only possible when everyone knows the cost of breaking it. 3 days later, the first wave of the human expeditionary fleet departed Earth orbit. 300,000 ships, each one carrying the names of Haven's Edge victims painted on their hulls. The aliens had wanted to show humanity its place in the universe. Now humanity was going to return the lesson. Admiral Eric Turner was studying star charts when his sensors officer called out. They had been patrolling the Centauri sector for 3 weeks, looking for alien ships. The human expeditionary fleet had spread out across known space, hunting for the creatures that had destroyed Haven's Edge. Contact, Admiral. 3 alien vessels approaching from the asteroid field. Eric looked up from his charts. His ship, the Vengeance, was leading a small group of 12 human vessels. They were the advanced scouts meant to find the enemy and report back. But these aliens had made the mistake of finding them first. How big are they? Eric asked. Each one is about the same size as our heavy cruisers, sir. They're moving in formation, just like they did at Haven's Edge. Eric felt his jaw tighten. Every human in the fleet had studied the recordings from Haven's Edge. They knew how these aliens fought. They knew how they had murdered innocent families without warning. Are they scanning us? Yes, sir, they seem curious about our ships. They're probably trying to figure out what we are. Eric smiled coldly. Let's show them. All ships, battle formation. Target their lead vessel. When I give the word, hit them with everything we have. The 12 human ships moved into position. The aliens continued their approach, probably thinking they had found easy prey like the defenseless colonists of Haven's Edge. They were about to learn the difference between civilians and the human military. Sir, they're powering up weapons, reported the tactical officer. Good, let them fire first. I want them to think they have a chance. The alien ships opened fire with their energy cannons, the same weapons that had turned Haven's Edge into glass. The beams struck the human ships, but instead of breaking through, they were absorbed by the new shield systems. Now, Eric said quietly, the human ships fired as one. Energy cannons, missile launchers, and the new torpedo systems all struck the lead alien vessel at the same time. The alien ship's shields held for exactly 2 seconds before collapsing. The ship itself lasted another 3 seconds before exploding, in a ball of superheated plasma. The other 2 alien ships tried to run. They never had a chance. Human ships were faster now, with better engines built from improved alien technology. The missiles caught up with them first, guided warheads that the aliens had no defense against. Both ships were destroyed before they could send a distress signal. Any survivors? Eric asked. Negative, sir. Complete destruction. Eric nodded. He felt no satisfaction from the victory, only a grim sense of justice. 3 alien ships destroyed for Haven's Edge. It wasn't nearly enough, but it was a start. Send a message to Fleet Command. First contact with enemy patrol successful. Enemy vessels destroyed with no damage to human ships. Proceeding to next sector. 2 days later, communications specialist Maria Johnson was monitoring alien radio frequencies when she heard something interesting. She was aboard the intelligence ship Discovery, part of Admiral Turner's group. Her job was to listen to enemy communications and learn whatever she could about alien plans. Admiral, you need to hear this, Maria called out. Admiral Turner came to her station. Through the static and alien language, they could hear panic in the voices. Maria had been working with human linguists to understand the alien language, and she was getting better at it. What are they saying? Eric asked. They're talking about the patrol ships that disappeared. 3 vessels that were supposed to report back from the Centauri sector. The alien commander is asking where they are. Maria adjusted her equipment, trying to get a clearer signal. Wait, there's more. They're talking about other missing patrols. Sir, I think we're not the only human group that's been successful. Over the next hour, Maria intercepted more alien communications. The picture that emerged was startling. Alien patrol groups were disappearing all across the frontier. Human ships were hunting them down faster than they could be replaced. They're scared, Maria said with amazement. Listen to this transmission. The alien voice came through the speakers, translated by the computer. Unknown ships appear without warning. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Request immediate reinforcement. The metal ships multiply like infection. Eric felt a grim satisfaction. They're learning that humans aren't defenseless colonists. There's more, sir. They're pulling back their forward scouts, concentrating their forces at their main bases. This was exactly what Fleet Command wanted to hear. Captain Nick Roberts was leading the deep strike missions into alien space, hitting their supply bases and communication stations. Every victory provided more intelligence about alien weaknesses and more proof that humanity was winning this war. Nick's ship, the Striker, was specially designed for these missions. Fast, heavily armed, and capable of operating alone behind enemy lines. He had destroyed 7 alien bases in the past month, each one revealing more about how the aliens organize their military. "They're not as advanced as they pretend to be," Nick reported during his latest briefing with Admiral Collins back on Earth. "Their technology is powerful, but they don't innovate. They've been using the same ship designs and tactics for probably centuries. They've gotten lazy, used to fighting primitive species that can't fight back." "What about their numbers?" Admiral Collins asked. "That's the interesting part. We've been tracking their fleet movements, and they have fewer ships than we thought. Maybe 60,000 total, spread across dozens of systems. They rely on fear and overwhelming firepower against defenseless targets, but they've never faced an enemy that could fight back effectively." The intelligence reports painted a clear picture. The aliens had conquered many worlds by appearing suddenly with massive firepower and terrorizing populations into surrender. Species that tried to resist were simply exterminated, like Haven's Edge. But they had never faced an organized military response from a technologically equal opponent. "Sir," Nick continued, "they're starting to recall ships from their conquered territories. They know something is wrong, but they don't understand what they're facing yet." Meanwhile, the human fleet continued to grow. Every day brought new ships from the shipyards of Earth, Mars, and the asteroid colonies. Admiral Susan Reed now commanded over 500,000 vessels, with more joining every week. The aliens sent their own message to humanity, transmitted on all frequencies. "Surrender now, and your species will be granted quick extinction. Continue resistance, and we will make your deaths last for generations." President Foster's response was broadcast across human space and transmitted directly to the alien fleet. "You killed our children and thought we would kneel. You were wrong. We don't surrender. We don't negotiate with murderers. We finish what you started." Maria Johnson intercepted the alien reaction to the president's message. For the first time, she heard something new in their communications. Fear. Real fear. "They're calling an emergency gathering of their war council," she reported. "All their remaining fleet commanders are being recalled to their home system. They're talking about the endless metal tide, sir. They think our ships are multiplying faster than they can count them." Admiral Turner looked at the tactical display showing human ship positions across known space. Hundreds of thousands of vessels, each one carrying the memory of Haven's Edge and the determination to see justice done. "They're right to be afraid," he said quietly. "They wanted to show us what happens when a colony falls. Now they're about to learn what happens when you anger 7 billion humans." The war was turning. The aliens who had appeared so powerful at Haven's Edge were now the ones being hunted. Their patrols disappeared into space, their bases burned, their communications networks crumbled under human attacks. They had awakened something they didn't understand, and now it was too late to go back. The human fleet was ready for the final phase. 700,000 ships would soon gather for the assault on the alien home system. The species that had committed genocide was about to face the consequences of their actions. Ambassador Helen Carter sat across from the alien delegation on Kepler Station, a neutral trading post between human and alien space. The meeting room was cold and sterile, with 2 groups of beings who now understood they were mortal enemies. The aliens had requested this meeting after months of losing ships and bases to human attacks. The alien ambassador was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. He called himself Veltar and claimed to speak for the Kethvar Dominion. Behind him sat 2 military advisors who kept glancing nervously at the human delegation. "Ambassador Carter," Veltar began, his voice translated by a mechanical device, "we have come to offer terms for peace. The Dominion recognizes that your species has proven more resilient than expected." Helen kept her face completely neutral. She had volunteered for this assignment knowing it would be difficult. The families of Haven's Edge deserved someone who would speak for them. "I'm listening." We propose relocation of your species to the Outer Rim systems. There are suitable worlds there, far from Dominion space. Your people can live peacefully without further conflict." Helen was quiet for a long moment. Around the table, her human staff waited to see how she would respond. Finally, she leaned forward and spoke very clearly. "Let me make sure I understand. You want to relocate us after you murdered 2.5 million innocent people on Haven's Edge?" "Casualties of war are regrettable," Veltar replied, "but necessary when inferior species refuse to acknowledge proper order." "Inferior species," Helen repeated. She opened a folder and pulled out photographs, pictures of children from Haven's Edge, families, elderly couples who had moved there to enjoy their retirement. She placed them on the table where the aliens could see them. These inferior beings had names. Sarah Miller, age 6. She loved to draw pictures of flowers. Tom Wilson, age 73. He taught farming to new colonists. Lisa Parker, who died trying to save her neighbors when your ships arrived. The alien advisors looked uncomfortable, but Veltar showed no emotion. "Sentimentality will not change the situation. Accept relocation or face complete extinction." Helen stood up slowly. Her words would be remembered throughout human history. "You killed our children and thought we would kneel. You were wrong. We don't relocate, we don't negotiate with murderers. We finish what you started." She walked out of the meeting room followed by her staff. Behind them, the aliens sat in stunned silence. They had expected fear, bargaining, desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, they had received a promise of war to the end. 2 weeks later, Admiral Tony Mitchell stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching something that had never been seen before in galactic history. Around his ship, stretching in every direction, was the largest military force ever assembled. 700,000 human warships, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor and bristling with weapons. "Final count, Admiral," reported his communications officer. 698,412 vessels reporting ready for battle. Tony nodded. Each ship represented months of human work, human ingenuity, human determination. Engineers had worked around the clock. Factory workers had missed time with their families. Children had drawn pictures of spaceships and sent them to the crews. An entire species had focused on one goal: justice for Haven's Edge. "Signal from Fleet Admiral Reed, sir. The main assault begins in 1 hour." Tony looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was arranged in formation groups, each one larger than most species' entire military. The first wave alone numbered 200,000 ships. The aliens had maybe 60,000 vessels total, and most of those were scattered across their territory. "Open a channel to all ships," Tony ordered. His voice carried to every human vessel in the fleet. Crew members of the Human Expeditionary Force. 1 year ago, the aliens who called themselves the Kethavar Dominion destroyed Haven's Edge colony. They killed our people without warning, without mercy, without reason except their belief that we were inferior. Today, we show them the price of that mistake. Across the fleet, 700,000 crews listened to their admiral's words. Many of them had friends or family who had died on Haven's Edge. All of them had volunteered to serve in humanity's response. We are not here for conquest. We are not here for glory. We are here because when someone kills your family, you make them answer for it. Today, the stars themselves will remember that humanity keeps its promises. The alien home system of Kethavar Prime appeared on the long-range sensors. Their remaining fleet was there, arranged around their home world in defensive positions. 60,000 ships that had once terrorized dozens of species. It looked pitifully small against the human armada approaching from hyperspace. Admiral Susan Reed commanded the overall battle from her flagship, the Retribution. She had been preparing for this moment for months, studying every detail of alien tactics and ship capabilities. Today would end the war that had started at Haven's Edge. "All vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Reed. We are about to make our final jump. Remember your training, remember your purpose, and remember Haven's Edge. Jumping in 3, 2, 1, mark." 700,000 human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kethavar system. The site was visible from planets 12 light years away. a wall of metal and fire that stretched across space, blocking out entire starfields. No military force in galactic history had ever assembled on such a scale. On Kethvar Prime, alien civilians looked up at their sky and saw death approaching. Their mighty fleet, which had conquered 100 worlds, appeared as tiny specks against the approaching human armada. War Master Theclon, Supreme Commander of Kethvar forces, stood on his command bridge watching the human fleet deploy. His tactical officers were reporting numbers that seemed impossible. 700,000 vessels, confirmed War Master. They're maintaining formation and approaching at standard battle speed. Theclon had lived for 300 years. He had conquered 50 species and destroyed twice that many civilizations. He had never seen anything like this. Send a message to all ships. Prepare for final battle. Today we face an enemy that believes it can match the Dominion. But even as he gave the orders, Theclon knew the truth. This wasn't a battle. This was an execution. The humans hadn't come to fight. They had come to finish what the Dominion had started at Haven's Edge. General Patricia Hayes commanded the human ground forces from her assault ship. 2 million Marines were ready to land on Kethvar Prime once the orbital defenses were eliminated. They had trained for urban combat, knowing that the aliens would fight to the end in their cities. "General, we're getting reports from other human fleets," her aide reported. "Admiral Powell's forces have reached the Kethvar industrial systems. Admiral Miller's group is hitting their military academies. We have the entire Dominion surrounded." Patricia nodded. This wasn't just about destroying their military. This was about making sure the Kethvar could never threaten anyone again. Every shipyard, every weapons factory, every military installation was being targeted simultaneously. "How long until we can begin landing operations?" "Admiral Mitchell estimates 6 hours to clear orbital resistance, ma'am. 6 hours to end a war that had lasted 1 year. Patricia thought about the families of Haven's Edge, the people who would never see their children grow up because of alien cruelty. Soon, they would have justice. The final battle was about to begin. The species that had committed genocide was about to face 700,000 reasons why that had been a mistake. The stars would remember this day, when humanity showed the galaxy what happened to those who killed human children. The battle for Kethvar Prime began at exactly 800 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Ben Collins watched from the bridge of his flagship as 700,000 human vessels opened fire on the alien home fleet. The space around the alien homeworld erupted in light as energy beams and missiles crossed the darkness between the two forces. War Master Theclon tried to organize his defense, but it was hopeless from the first moment. His 60,000 ships were spread thin around the planet, while the humans concentrated their firepower like a hammer blow. Entire sections of the alien fleet simply vanished under the weight of human weapons. "War Master, we've lost contact with the 4th defense ring," reported his tactical officer. "The human ships are breaking through everywhere." Theclon watched his display as red dots marking destroyed ships multiplied faster than he could count them. These were vessels that had conquered worlds, reduced civilizations to ash. Now they were being swept away like leaves in a storm. "Send the surrender signal," he ordered quietly. "Sir?" "You heard me. Send the white flag. Maybe we can negotiate terms." But when the surrender signal went out, the human response was immediate and final. Admiral Collins himself answered the transmission. "This is Admiral Collins of the Human Defense Force. Your request for surrender is denied. You had your chance to negotiate on Kepler Station. You chose war. Now you face the consequences." The human attack continued without pause. Captain Dan Miller, commanding the heavy assault ship Vengeance, led his squadron directly into the heart of the alien formation. Around him, human ships moved with perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly what they had to do. "Target the command ship," Dan ordered. "The big one in the center. That's where their leader is hiding." The Vengeance and 12 other human ships focused their fire on Theclon's flagship. The alien vessel was massive, 3 times the size of a human battleship, covered in armor and weapons. It lasted exactly 47 seconds under concentrated human fire before its hull cracked open and atmosphere began venting into space. Theclon felt his ship dying around him. Emergency lights flashed red, and the deck shook as explosions tore through the lower sections. He had commanded this vessel for 50 years, leading it to victory after victory. Now it was becoming his tomb. War Master, we have escape pods ready. His aide called out over the noise of failing systems. No, Theclon replied. I will face the end with my ship. Send one final message to the humans. The transmission reached Admiral Collins just as the alien flagship began to break apart. Theclon's voice was calm despite the chaos around him. Human Commander, you have won. Your species has proven stronger than ours. But know this, you have become the very thing you fought against. You are now the destroyers, the bringers of death. How long before you turn these weapons on other species? Admiral Collins listened to the message without expression. When it ended, he opened a channel to respond. War Master Theclon, we became what we needed to become to stop you. The difference is that we remember why we fight. We fight for the children of Haven's Edge, not for conquest. When this war ends, we will remember that lesson. Theclon's flagship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up half the solar system. With their commander dead, the remaining alien ships began to surrender or flee. But there was nowhere to run. Human forces had surrounded the entire Kethvar territory. General Patricia Hayes led the ground assault on Kethvar Prime itself. Her Marines landed in the alien capital city, expecting fierce resistance. Instead, they found a population that had already given up. The sight of their mighty fleet being destroyed had broken the Kethvar will to fight. General Hayes, this is Lieutenant Rogers, came a radio call from one of her advance teams. We've secured the government district. The alien leaders want to speak with you. Patricia found them in their council chamber, a dozen elderly aliens who had ruled an empire that spanned dozens of worlds. They looked up at her with the same fear they had once inspired in their victims. We surrender unconditionally, their spokesman said through a translator. What are your terms? Patricia thought about Haven's Edge, about Lisa Parker's final transmission, about 2.5 million people who would never go home again. You will disarm completely. Your military will be disbanded, your weapons will be destroyed. Any of your species found with weapons outside your home system will be treated as pirates. And our colonies? Our empire? Your empire is over. Goodbye. Species you conquered are free. Some of them are already on their way here to settle old scores. I suggest you focus on learning how to live peacefully on one world. Within 6 hours, the battle was over. The Kethvar Dominion, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, had been completely destroyed. Their fleet was debris floating in space. Their government had surrendered. Their empire was collapsing as freed species reclaimed their homeworlds. Admiral Collins stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking down at Kethvar Prime. Smoke rose from a dozen cities where human forces had landed. It reminded him of the reports from Haven's Edge, but this time it was justice being served instead of innocent people being murdered. Admiral, his communications officer called out. We're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Other species want to establish diplomatic contact. They're calling us the Liberators and asking for protection from other threats. Collins nodded slowly. The galaxy had changed in the past year. Humanity was no longer the peaceful species that had colonized Haven's Edge. They were now a military power that other civilizations both respected and feared. What are your orders regarding the diplomatic requests? The officer asked. Tell them, we'll consider each request carefully, but make it clear that we're not interested in ruling anyone. We just want to make sure that what happened to Haven's Edge never happens again. 6 months later, Commander Lisa Ford stood on the observation deck of Haven's Edge Memorial Station. The structure was built in orbit around the restored colony world, its hull covered with the names of everyone who had died in the alien attack. Every human ship that passed through the system could see it, a reminder of why the war had been fought. The colony below was being rebuilt. New families were moving in, bringing life back to a world that had been silent for over a year. Children played in parks where alien weapons had once left only glass and ash. Schools were being built where hospitals had been destroyed. Commander Ford, her aide called out, we're receiving a priority message from Earth. Lisa turned to see President Foster's face on the communication screen. Behind him, she could see the lights of Earth, peaceful and beautiful as always. Commander, I wanted to personally thank you for your work on the memorial project. The families of Haven's Edge finally have a place to remember their loved ones. Thank you, Mr. President. It was an honor to build it. Commander, I have another message for you to add to the memorial database. It's from Admiral Collins. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked older than he had during the war, but his eyes were steady and determined. To the families of Haven's Edge, he began. Your sacrifice was not forgotten. Your deaths were not meaningless. Because of what happened to you, humanity found the strength to become something greater than we were. We built 700,000 ships to answer for your murders. We crossed the galaxy to bring justice for your children. And now, because of that strength, other species know that human civilians are under the protection of the most powerful fleet in galactic history. He paused, looking directly into the camera. The stars remember Haven's Edge. They remember that when you threaten human families, 700,000 battleships come to settle the score. That memory will keep our children safe for generations to come. The message ended, but Lisa continued to stare at the colony below. New children were being born down there in hospitals built where the old ones had been destroyed. They would grow up in a galaxy where everyone knew what happened to those who threatened human civilians. The war was over, but the lesson would last forever. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of when pushed too far. 700,000 ships had darkened the stars, and the universe would remember that sight for a very long time. Peace had returned to human space, but it was a different kind of peace. It was the peace that came from strength, from the knowledge that justice would always be served no matter how long it took or how many ships it required. Haven's Edge was alive again, and the galaxy was a safer place because humanity had refused to kneel.